A week from Saturday in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium, there's going to be a team from Boston playing there that there will be noise for and people cheering. Then there'll be a team from Nebraska that'll be there. They call it the Pinstripe Bowl. The weather doesn't look bad. It'll be the Pinstripe Bowl 1 week from Saturday for Nebraska and Boston College. And with that, let's welcome in from the Boston Globe. Covers a little bit of everything, including Boston College football. Trevor Haas, he joins us now on the 42 Degrees Source Hotline. Good morning, Trevor.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Hey, you're a longtime New Englander. You cover a lot of different stuff. Let's first start here because around here, when we say, "Hey, Boston College football," and we start naming dudes, it's Flutie, Phelan, Matt Ryan, Steve Adazio. Don't hold that against us. Where with Bill O'Brien coming to Boston College, which is a name, where does in the landscape of non-pro sports, where does Boston College football rank in the Boston area?
Well, there's no denying it's a pro town. I mean, when you think about it, you just think about the Patriots and the Celtics immediately. The Red Sox are right there. The Bruins. It's been fun to grow up here. I mean, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't. I mean, I've seen tons of championships. It's been a great time. As a fan and then as a media member. Now that I'm an adult, it's been very enjoyable. But I think BC is definitely putting itself on the map a little bit. I think this year, it's kind of been under Bill O'Brien. They're kind of taking that next step where people are paying more attention. They're coming to games more. They're kind of realizing, there is a college team here. I think. Like you said, when you think about food and you think about Matt Ryan, I think there was buzz back then. I think it kind of disappeared for a couple of decades. And, obviously they're the diehard fans who come to every game, but in terms of the general landscape of the city. But now I think it is creeping back in. So I think a bowl game win would go a long way in terms of building that momentum and keeping it rolling. So I'll be curious to see how they do.
Yeah, Trevor, as a lifelong Chicago sports fan, I'm incredibly jealous of your Boston sports upbringing. I would trade for that in an instant. I got to ask you, though, and I think this is it's always interesting to get another writers and professionals perspective of the Nebraska football program. And I think that people are always curious about what people who aren't necessarily within the market think about where Nebraska is going. So I would love to get your outlook. And what do you think the general outlook of Boston sports is on Nebraska football currently right now, as you guys are kind of preparing and looking at the team ahead of the Pinstripe Bowl?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think when I just think of Nebraska outside of this game and outside of BC, I just think of a tradition, a great tradition where they've had tons of winning teams over the years. And, I think it's obviously on a greater scale than BC in terms of the success they've had, but yeah. I think it's similar in that they're trying to get back on the map. So I think a game like this can go a long way for both programs that have had successful years in the past and really want to get back to that national relevance. So, excuse me. So like I said, obviously Nebraska is a different level there, but I think it is an interesting concept how both programs have had their glory years and then been down or trying to get back. So I'll be curious to see which team gets momentum from this game.
Good year for Boston College at 7-5. Some good wins on the ledger. Can you walk us through how they were able to navigate the drama when we're watching from afar, Trevor? Boston College go into Tallahassee and win on a Monday night, and we're like, man, Castellanos a good quarterback. Now we get to November. He's out. He's in the portal. He's already transferred. And Grayson James, who transferred from FIU, is the starting quarterback. How'd they navigate, which could have seemed to be a lot of drama, but they finished up with a good month of November with James at the quarterback.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's been a pretty interesting season to cover. I've really enjoyed the kind of the drama of it. Like you said, it's been intriguing, so that's been fun to write about. So Castellanos had a really strong year last year. He played really well against SMU in the Fenway Bowl and led them to a big win there, which obviously seems even more impressive now considering what SMU is doing. So kudos to him on that. Sorry, I'm getting over COVID, so bear with me. So he played well to start the year, and they had that big win over Florida State. And like you said, at that point, it was like, wow, this team can really do something. Castellanos is pretty legit. And then they were 4-1. They got ranked after week 2 for the first time since 2018, which was pretty impressive. And then it kind of went downhill. So Castellanos had a concussion, which I think may have contributed to kind of the downfall there. And Bill O'Brien's obviously an incredible coach. He's had a great track record, but I think the key there is that they were trying to make him more of a pocket passer because that fits O'Brien's style more. But Castellanos is at his best when he's running wild and kind of doing unpredictable things with his legs. So I think it was kind of like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole is what I keep saying. So I think it kind of worked early in the year because he was, playing well and he wasn't overthinking the game. But once he started overthinking, I think it kind of went downhill. So they fell to 4-4, and then people were kind of freaking out, like the sky was falling, like the team may not win another game, which was actually a legitimate thought. They might have finished 4-8 if they had stuck with Castellanos. And I like covering Tommy. I think he's had some good moments, but they were not playing well. So I think it was definitely the right decision to switch to James. And James is kind of a cool story. I wrote a feature on him a couple weeks ago. So he he was basically out of offers. He was going to go to UT Martin, an FCS school, after FIU, and then that offer fell through, and he was kind of scrambling, like, what am I going to do? I want to keep playing. And then BC reached out, and he ended up coming to BC and earned the starting job after Castellanos left, and now he's playing really well, and he's been awesome. He's been one of the better quarterbacks in the ACC since he took over. So kudos to him for capitalizing on his opportunity. It's been kind of interesting, and I think he'll play well in this game, whether BC wins or not. I expect Grayson James to show up as he has every game.
So, Trevor, you bring up Grayson James. Just kind of educate us here on the Boston College Golden Eagles. What are some players that you think that Nebraska fans should be watching out for? What are some of the characteristics of this team that might potentially give the Huskers fits come bowl time?
Yeah, so I think the key to this game is whether both teams can stop the run. I think both teams have pretty pretty skilled at stopping the run, but I think BC has a really strong running game. So I think if Nebraska can kind of get the Eagles into second and long, third and long, Nebraska will have a pretty good chance to win. But if BC milks the clock and gets a lot of long drives, I think BC will have a good chance. So BC at its best is a team that runs the ball heavily and then kind of mixes it up with some play action and some deep passes. So one guy to keep an eye on is Reed Harris. He's a freshman. He's actually from Montana, which is kind of cool.
Okay.
And he's a really promising player, redshirt freshman. He's a guy who I think will make the NFL eventually. He's like 6'5" and really good hands, really good route runner. So I've been impressed by him. He's kind of starting to figure it out as a redshirt freshman. Kai Robichaux is a running back who's just very solid. He's like, when you think of just dependable player, he's just extremely reliable, just does his job, never fumbles. Now he probably will, but never fumbles. Scores touchdowns when he should. So I've been impressed by him throughout his career. Drew Kendall and Ozzie Trapillo are two linemen who are excellent. They're local kids, so it's always cool to see when local kids do well at their school. Defensively, obviously, Donovan Ezraku is the star. We'll see if he plays in this game. He's the kind of guy who strikes me as someone who would play just because that's how he's wired, but also you have to think about your future, so you never really know what will happen there. But he's been their best player by a mile. He's a defensive end. He led the country in sacks, which some people may not know, which is kind of insane. So good for him. It's kind of an interesting story with him, too. So last year, he was not great, and he would be the first to tell you that. He kind of burst onto the scene as a sophomore and then took a step back as a junior and wasn't really playing that well. I think teams kind of realized he was the guy, and he was overthinking the game. And this year he kind of got back to his roots and just started playing football again the way he knows how. And he's really been one of the best players in the entire country. He was a first-team All-American for the AP, so kudos to him. Cam Arnold may or may not play in this game. He's been dealing with an arm injury, but good linebacker. Max Tucker is a good guy in the secondary. So those are some of the main guys, but definitely a balanced team that likes to run the ball. And when they're at their best, they're getting a lot of interceptions and playing well in the secondary. So we shall see.
So there are people in Lincoln who are like, you know what? I think Ezraku, you should just get ready for the NFL draft. What's your gut say? Because we are on the 19th of December, and we've worried about a guy like Ty Robinson in Nebraska. Is he gonna opt out to get ready for the draft? What's your gut say? Will Ezraku just go forward and he will play in this game?
I would put it at probably like 65% yes. Just from I've covered him for 4 years, and he's a really, really competitive guy. Obviously, if you're playing D1 football, you're competitive, but he really is extremely competitive, like more than the average guy. So I think he has some unfinished business to tend to. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is that this will be BC's first 8-win season since 2009 if they can win this game. So it's a lot at stake here. They've kind of been building toward this. I mean, they obviously had the Pinstripe Bowl win last year, which was a big stepping stone, but this would feel like a significant milestone to get to 8 wins and beat a team like Nebraska at Yankee Stadium. I think it would be kind of the perfect send-off for him. So there's obviously a chance. Like, I'm sure people are telling him, you gotta think about the future. Excuse me, he might be a first or second round pick, so you may have to do what you have to do. But I would expect him to play if I had to guess.
Trevor, so this is a more local game for Boston College than it is for Nebraska. I know that there were a lot of people here who were kind of disappointed with the location, with flights, the time of year, the weather, and whatnot. So do you anticipate a bigger Boston College crowd going to Yankee Stadium? Do you have a pulse on whether or not you think it could potentially be a home game for the Eagles, or do you think this would probably be a little bit more of a split stadium in terms of attendance?
Yeah, I expect a split. I think the Nebraska brand is so recognizable, and I think people will be excited that they're back in a bowl game, and they'll travel to this game. So I think people will be there from Nebraska's side, and you guys would know better than I would, but I would expect it to be pretty well attended. And then BC-wise, I think you'll be well attended as well. I think last year at the Pinstripe Bowl, it was a really strong attendance, and it was a messy game. It was ugly. It was rainy, and it really played in a BC style, and they kind of put their brand back on the map a little bit. So I think the more rain, the better for BC. And like you said, the weather doesn't look too bad, which we'll take with an outdoor press box.
Yeah.
But it's not looking terrible, not looking great. So I expect this to be a pretty solid crowd from both sides. I don't think it will be overflowing, but I think it will be pretty evenly distributed and well attended.
Hey, Trevor, we'll get you out on this, and I'm gonna tap into your love of Boston sports. So, the weird world that is college football. Well, Boston College and Nebraska are going to play in a baseball stadium. Bill Belichick will be somewhere at Fenway Park watching his future North Carolina team play. We miss out on the schedule in the ACC that North Carolina doesn't come to Boston College. But if that was the case, what would be the response if Bill Belichick came and was coaching in Chestnut Hill at Alumni Stadium wearing North Carolina gear?
I mean, the whole thing has been pretty shocking, honestly. When it kind of surfaced that it may be a possibility, I was honestly, I would say, astonished. Like, I just never saw this coming. I saw UNC play BC a few weeks ago, and BC absolutely dominated that game. BC's had a pretty solid season, but they're not in the cream of the crop when it comes to the national brand. So they destroyed UNC, and so it's just kind of interesting that Belichick would take that job, considering what he's accomplished in his career. But I think he looked at the NFL landscape and thought that there wasn't really anything for him, and I don't think teams are as interested as, in my opinion, they should be. But so I think he decided to go back to his roots and go where his dad coached, and I think it's pretty cool. I don't think they're going to naturally vault into being a national contender, but I do think they'll improve under him, and I think it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. So yeah, I think it will be interesting too at the Fenway Bowl, where people are coming in baby blue and they've got their Belichick gear and they got their visors ready to watch them. So I'm curious to see how it all shakes out, and I'm excited.
Hey, great stuff, Trevor. We hope you get better and you can enjoy the holidays. And we thank you for your insight. Good interview. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. My pleasure. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Trevor.
That was good.
That was great.
I like Trevor.
I like him a lot. I don't know. Maybe if the Patriots end up going to the Super Bowl or something, we should bring him in. I'm